Welcome into another episode of Discard for Magic. I'm one of your hosts, Aaron.
I'm the other host, James or Jexic, and today we're bringing back on Excile to talk about League Season 34.
Hello, happy to be here.
So, Exile was our champion for the past league season. Congrats on that, Exile.
Thank you. It was a fun run, pretty close.
Yeah, I went 7-3. Nothing to scoff at, that's for sure. First time in Division 1 and took down the champion.
Yeah. No, I thoroughly enjoy League.
What's like the shortest bit of advice you could give to people trying to ascend the league? Is it just make sure you look at the game log and figure out which cards people have played, as we've been discussing in chat lately?
It's a good place to start. I would say the thing about League is that it highlights specific matchups, right? And I think that if you want to climb in the league, getting a good idea of the matchup before you play your league games is a really good way to get an edge. Sometimes I do, sometimes I don't. There were some matchups that I had a pretty good idea about before playing my match, and there was a couple that I kind of learned along the way. But if you can get even just one or two games in, or even just like looking at like a couple openings against yourself or against the AI, get you a little bit of a feel before you dive into your first league match and then go, oh, I don't know exactly how to approach this or what I'm doing.
You talking like practice matches or?
Yeah. Practice matches if you have somebody to play with, or even just AI is not a good way to get like a feel for actual play, but it can maybe at least give you an idea of like opening before you kind of find your footing in the matchup, because openings matter quite a bit and they can kind of dictate the pace of the game. If you, in certain matchups, decide to hang back instead of push forward, that can shape the rest of how the match goes. So even just against the AI, if you're just going, okay, if I, do this opening, what does that look like from the other side, or vice versa?
Interesting. I don't do a lot of practice matches myself anymore. I used to do a couple a while back, but I haven't in quite some time. The first matchup we have here is Obsidian Dwarves versus Tundra Orcs, which the Obsidian Dwarves won 56% to Tundra Orcs 44%.
Which is kind of interesting because this one was actually played before as well, and that time the OD only won 30% of the games. So if you put the two together, it's actually still Tundra Orcs favored. But I'm curious what you guys think, because so I had a Tundra Orc split versus Massimo, and the two of you played each other in this matchup and had a Tundra Orc split as well. Where do you think the matchup really falls?
For me personally, I think it's a bit of a complicated question, and I think it really depends on how, especially the Tundra Orcs player approaches it. So this is one of the matchups where I wasn't super well versed, but had what to do kind of going in. But I feel like if both sides just kind of run at each other, then it is a bit of a gamble on, how hot is Balzar burning, the draw orders of each respective faction, those kinds of things. It's a little bit of a crapshoot, so to speak, and that's how I think you could get some really high variance results. But where I think that TO can take an edge would be playing a more defensive style of Tundra Orcs, which is something that's not very popular. Kind of forcing Balzar and OD in general to approach you and having a stronger counterpunch as opposed to kind of meeting them in the middle or aggressing onto their territory. So I guess this is one where I think that the league data can side with, but also it really just depends on how people actually play it.
Yeah, I mean, in our matchup, Exile, I thought that OD had a chance in both games, but then just didn't really get the dice to support their chance. It still feels like to me that it's a little bit Tundra Orc favored, but I sputtered out hard as Obsidian Dwarves when I was in that corner, and you were approaching with Shank and Ragnar, and I had a chance to make some plays on you, but I didn't get any dice. And then you were getting some hits, but you were getting specials as well, so you weren't getting the boost you needed on Balzar.
Yep.
Both on like Oathsworn and on Balzar, you just couldn't get any boost generation. So you got some of the hits that helped a little bit, but that lack of boost generation can really hurt. I'm saying,
yeah. If I remember correctly, it ended up costing me a lot of health because I would plan on using like a guard or maybe the following turn would need to summon an Ember Demon or something, but just I was sitting at 0 boost on Balzar for most of the game, so
Mhm.
that then ended up kind of turning into, oh well, shoot, I guess I've self-damaged myself like by 3 or 4 HP, which is not where you want to be as Obsidian Dwarves, because I think that's probably the biggest focal point in this matchup is Balzar health matters so much. And it always matters, I think, pretty much regardless of your matchup, just because they're so summoner focused. But especially with the amount of damage and just the amount of melee dice and the like deceptive reach of Tundra Orcs, I think that getting early Balzar damage or just damage at any point in the game is really important. So if I remember correctly, when I won with Tundra Orc, if I remember, I got some early damage on Balzar with a couple for glories, just like with a charger or some other like 4 melee hit, right? I think I played pretty conservative with Balzar when you were on Tundra Orcs, but it kind of ended up to a similar point because I just low rolled on boosts.
Yeah, it's tough if you're playing as Obsidian Dwarves and you can't get those dice. I think that's part of probably why this matchup swung so hard. I think maybe the Obsidian Dwarf players in general got better dice this time around, or maybe they caught Grognak unaware. But
Yeah.
any matchup with Obsidian Dwarves that needs to be up close and personal, which Tundra Orcs does because they don't really have the range to support them, is going to be a bit swingy in how it comes out.
I mean, I kind of feel like, though, that regardless of how Balzar rolls, that both For Glory and Brutal Force are very scary tools for the Tundra Orcs for any summoner-focused deck. And that's why I was thinking it's Tundra Orc favorite, just because your ability to advance is really low, I think, or at least safely. Like, you're always scared of those combos until you've seen them, so...
Also, Brutal Force Primal Fury is another terrifying thing where, like, if you
Yeah.
get down to 6 to 7 HP, there are tons of tricks that if the Tundra Orc player has both of those cards, they can get a 6 out of 8 or 7 out of 8 or better kill shot.
Yeah. I think in my win, I used Brutal Force to launch Grognak forward to get into Primal Fury range.
Yep, that's always a good one. That also really like leans into that like defensive Tundra Orcs thing that I was saying earlier as well, because it's a lot easier to kind of play around those combos if TO are pushed like ahead of their gates, right? But if Tundra Orcs is sitting back and kind of forcing Balzar to approach in order to get boosts and in order to just really play the game. They're also a pretty melee focused faction outside of Balzar. They chuck a ton of range dice, but it's almost all Balzar, Oathsworn and maybe Devura, right? Or the odd Hellforge chain. So forcing them to come to you kind of just forces them to stick their neck out, and that's when you can crack down hard with those event combos.
I remember in the game I was playing as Tundra Orcs, I think I was just dancing around a gate. I think it was actually your gate that I was dancing around to just protect yourself. Because you talked about how Balzar health is so important in this matchup, but I think Grognak's health is really important in this matchup too. Because if Grognak's got one of the most health in the game, and if you keep that like very high, then it's hard, even if they get an opening, for OD to fully drop Grognak in one turn. And if they try that, then they have to expend a ton and probably open themselves up to a counterattack. Keeping like something that they have to go through, whether it's like a gate or a unit of yours or something to prevent that first hit, is really key to protecting Grognak. And a gate is a great option, especially if it's your opponent's.
Yeah, for sure. Also, there's two also parts of that that are really nice against OD that I find, which is finding a way to get yourself in an L shape to where Balzar can go, a knight's move away from where Balzar could be, whether it's by just pure movement or like spaces that are occupied, because then he can't volcanic blast you. So that's a tool that's really, really good to use if you're ever struggling with pretty much any matchup against Obsidian Dwarf aggression, is making sure that your valuable pieces, mostly your summoner, stay within that like L shape and they have units to block off to where Balzar can go. And the other thing is keeping something that is greater than 4 HP between you and Balzar, because otherwise they can do the trick of volcanic blast it away, and then shoot you with Balzar or some other unit down that lane. So those are two things that I find that help out a lot against OD, which I had a lot of practice, not in this matchup, but in Mountain Vargris versus Obsidian Dwarves from when B was playing a bunch, and I just queued into him like 20 times.
As we all did.
Me as a solid OD player. What do we think about the next matchup? High Elves versus Polar Dwarves. Polar Dwarves were favored 56 to High Elves 44%. Same breakdown as the first matchup. I won both versus Mr. Blobfish. Jexic lost both versus Physic. And Exile split with HE, with the High Elves being the winner of both games there versus Cheras.
To me, this one, the league data is very surprising. Although at the same time, I think it kind of makes sense. Because when I think of this matchup in a vacuum, right? Before I started playing it, I went, how can Polar Dwarves ever win this matchup? Because they just don't have the damage outside of Ram Shift to really chew through the tough commons of High Elves. High Elves have so many tools that feel like they line up really well in this matchup, but the data has skewed the other way, and Polar Dwarves have ended up, at least overall, winning the matchup. Although, I will say, throughout every division, it was an even split of 3-3 in D1. But even in D2, PD had a 62% win rate, which me is crazy, but I guess, there are ways that they can win, and the biggest things are, I think, just structures are a hard thing that for High Elves to deal with.
This matchup came up once, like when High Elves first came out, grand final of one of the Plaid Hat tournaments where Prophet was on High Elves and Water D had the Polar Dwarves, and Water D just lost pretty hard against Prophet that time. Part of his High Elves were new, so maybe he didn't really know how to deal with the High Elves, but it was a Cassia thing, like a big, huge block of units that were just really hard to take down, and I feel like that's how I expected this matchup to go, is the High Elves winning kind of that way. Maybe it's just not as many people have reps in with High Elves, and they're just going to struggle that way. I don't know.
That's my take. That was my conclusion, was that the league data is, the general public, right? And it's stratified into the different divisions, but at the end of the day, it's just everybody who's playing the game, right? Not a lot of High Elves players, and also High Elves are like notoriously one of, if not the most, like, brain hurt faction. So I think it's really easy to make mistakes with them. If you took a really experienced High Elf player against a really experienced Polar Dwarf player, I think it probably skews in the direction of High Elves. But for the majority of people playing this game, and even like myself, as not somebody who just plays a lot of High Elves, it is difficult to make sure that you're making the right moves.
I think this one's a really interesting one. So I actually think Polar Dwarves have the tools to deal with High Elves. I just think it depends on playstyle. You can play either faction and win this game. I think it's probably pretty close to 50-50. But again, people are sleeping on Polar Dwarves. Everybody hating on the Polar Dwarves, and again, they win another league matchup. People got to stop sleeping on Polar Dwarves.
I mean, they said that they thought Guild Dwarves would beat them too, and then Polar Dwarves won that one. So I
Polar
don't know.
Dwarves slaughtered the Guild Dwarves last time. It wasn't even close. But Polar Dwarves, they have the auto damage to take out pieces. And I think looking through like your notes, Exile, Jarmond is a huge factor. Like if you got Jarmond and he can get some of that auto damage in there, pieces really aren't as much of a factor. You can clear them out pretty easily. And it also depends on positioning. Like if you got Jarmond, but the High Elf player never approaches and they just sit back and snipe you, then Jarmon's not as effective, even if you get him out. Like, yeah, you could approach them, and maybe that can work too, but that's a little bit different game. Whereas, like, in the games that I played, the High Elf player approached me and actually looked at one point like a very dire situation. Like, I know Exile's seen this already, and it looked rough.
I was looking at your game, and I was like, how I didn't actually know the result prior to watching it, and I'm like, so Aaron's just full loss here, and then you just clawed your way out. It was really, really impressive.
Thanks. But yeah, so I have like Savara as my only person on the board. I have a gate that is fully clogged and no ways to summon anything. And I have like 8 health. And Titus is on the board. 3 commons are on the board. And it looks to be about even in econ. And Valeria has, I think, about the same amount of health. And so like I don't have a summoning spot. I don't have any units on the board. I don't have anything. But what I do have is the High Elves player approached me. So I am in my back area, and I have a structure deck. And that's one of the benefits of Polar Dwarves is next turn I drop a Parapet and an Ice Golem, and I take out like a unit and prevent Titus from getting up close and personal with that Parapet. And then after that, I drop like Jarman out, and then I'm shooting with Jarman and Savara and doing auto damage every turn after that. And then I have Ice Golems that I keep dropping out. And because I have the ability to drop out these structures, and I don't even need my gate to summon off of, because I have the Ice Golems that come into play, it just becomes a tough situation for the High Elf player. And I am way behind in this aspect, but I do claw myself back with the structures and with Jarmond, and I get a lot of damage off Jarmond, and I end up winning it. But it's partly on how they approach the game, because in the opposite game when I played against Mr. Blobfish, I stayed back with High Elves the entire time, and I think it was a lot harder for... Jarman never came out, but it was a lot harder for that auto damage to come in. There was like an Ice Ram shift, which is helpful in this matchup because you can get some of that auto damage and take some of them out of formation and get rid of some of those common units and do extra damage to them. So Ice Ram shift can really help you. It's a harder matchup for Polar Dwarves if the High Elves stay back, in my opinion. And if the High Elves approach, it's easier because you can get that auto damage a lot more easily and do a lot more with your Ice Rams and shifts, and they've fallen into your trap card, essentially.
I would agree with that. And I think that even if the High Elf player is staying back, which I think is the right strategy, unless you have an opportunity, like, I think I probably still would have taken the shot that your opponent did, and like putting you in that no summon spot box is really difficult. And you still were able to fight out of it, but I still think it was at that point probably a winning position for them. But I think that if they do stay back, then that's probably where random shift really shines to go from your side of the board to theirs. Because you get to do a bunch of auto damage, you get to, pick apart their formation, and then you get to be on top of them with your structures in their field. One thing I do want to call out, other than Yarmond, which was hilarious to just review all of the D1 games and just see whatever he came out, him being such an important piece that if he died, Polar Dwarfs kind of fell apart, and if they kept him alive, then he ended up winning. Some common Polar Dwarf advice that I think is actually incorrect in this matchup, which is a lot of the times I've heard, oh, you don't really need gates, just the 5 health gate, as much in Polar Dwarves because you have Ice Golems, which is often true because, you don't need the extra summoning spots all the time. But I think here, gates being a 0 cost, thing to put down on the board, same 5 health, not being a common unit for Valeria to oblige or dictate, which Ice Golems are, is a really huge advantage, and it's something that still threatens summoning spots, can still be moved around with Svara and Glacial Shift, and also provides something for Yarband to deal damage off of. So I would actually lean more towards having gates, maybe a little bit less Ice Golems, or just keep playing Ice Golems, but also play gates, just so that way you have the structure HP on the board that isn't something that High Elves can manipulate.
Yeah, I mean, gates I think are important in this matchup, and I think I played a fair amount of mine, but even more so, and these are good in any matchup, so it's not as big of a hot take or anything. But parapets are crucial in this matchup because of that aspects you were talking about, Exile, where Valeria can't force them. They can prevent barriers between some of those units. Mine saved me from Titus, which was important in that game. If I don't get that out, I probably die. Parapets can be really strong.
For sure. There's this phenomenon that I really like to see in analyzing matchups, where you find something like, ooh, gates and parapets are really good in this matchup, or better than normal, and it influences the value of other cards too. So because gates and parapets are so good, I think Ice Repair becomes a better tool. Still can always be great value, is very board state dependent, but like if keeping alive your gates and parapets is really crucial, then Ice Repair is like the perfect tool for that situation. So although like on its own, is Ice Repair good in High Elves? In a vacuum, no. Why would it be good in High Elves? But is Ice Repair in the context of this matchup really good? I think so.
So the next matchup we have is Guild Dwarfs versus Sand Goblins. Almost 50-50. Guild Dwarfs 49%, Sand Goblins 51%.
And all of our matchups were split. I lost both of mine, Aaron lost both of his, and Excile won both of his.
Very, very even matchup is what the league data shows, and I think I would think the same.
Funny thing to me, though, is I walked in thinking, okay, Guild Wars versus Sand Goblins, they're both structure factions. They're both going to hang back and try to do their thing, play a long econ game. And Ace Guy just rushed me both times, and I did not expect it, and I lost both games in a hurry. And it's funny because I'm usually one thinking of playing aggressively, and he just did it. And then I just, like, I didn't have the offense to, or, like, defensive, like, kickback to actually stop him either time. It was funny. I don't know how your games went for you guys, but I found that amusing.
In mine, I lost both to Fabo. I took some early damage on Olden as Guild Dwarves and played from behind the entire rest of the game. Fabo, I think, rolled almost perfect dice on Olden, but I don't think, affect the game that much. I mean, it did affect the game, but like I don't know if it changed the outcome because I just felt behind the entire game as Guild Dwarves. But then as Sand Goblins, I felt like I was winning that game, basically the entire game, and then Fabo rolled like 6 out of 7 range dice to kill Krusk on a last shot, and that hurt because I felt like I was had a good shot to win that game.
I think that this matchup is really, really complicated. I mean, they're two complicated factions, but one thing that I think does is a bit of a touch point to simplify it, right? And in thinking about it, would be summoner health here really matters because both are pretty. When I say involved, I don't mean in combat necessarily, but like able to carry stuff around is really important. Really extends your threat range, and him taking a lot of damage is scary not only because there are lots of tricks that Guild Wars can use to blow you up. Grunder being probably the biggest one because the reach of summoning Grunder off of a relatively like forward midboard gate and diagonally build a Baldur's Gate and then summon like a defender or something is just for Olden too. Is that if he takes a bunch of damage, Sand Goblins have one of the highest reaches in the game, which means that for you to not just continuously take damage until you're dead, you have to play really conservative with him, and then you don't really get to leverage your redeploy. So your econ then suffers. Be able to smack a summoner, especially down to like the around half health threshold, really pays dividends if you can do it early.
Yeah, and that's what happened with me was I took that early damage and then I just got pinged to death, harassed the rest of the game with mortars and different aspects, and it's so hard to dodge the Sand Goblins. And I had chances to potentially put Krusk in a casket or cripple Krusk, but I never got the card combos that I was looking for, so I never was able to pull it off. I was also short on magic a lot. I think partly to my own accord, but partly not killing a whole lot of units.
Yeah, and Sand Goblins also love to just deny magic, just kill their own stuff or detonate, and especially for a magic hungry faction as Guild Dwarves is, that can be difficult.
It sounds like we're saying it might be more Sand Goblin favored than the data showed then.
I think probably a bit. I think it's probably a little bit more Sand Goblin favored than the data showed. I don't think it's crazy. I think it's probably like 55%, maybe pushing like 57, maybe.
I think it is pretty close to even. It might swing a little bit towards Sand Goblins, but a really big saving grace, I think, for Guild Dwarves is that all of the little chip that Sand Goblins likes to do, you can redeploy, and you can get an econ advantage that way. And I think, how do you say, Guild Dwarves, if they are locked and loaded, present a really high threat to Sand Goblins. When they like deny targets and they leave a lot of open space. If Krusk is just chilling on the board by himself with his 10 gate and nothing else, there is ample space for, summoning Grundor, running him up and getting a bunch of damage off, or blowing up the 10 gate, or all of these kind of tricks that Guild Dwarves can do. If Guild Dwarves don't have the resources, they're low magic, or they've run out of cards, they're low econ, or they're just too far away, that's when I think they can get into a lot of trouble, because then Sand Goblins can kind of just do whatever they want. and be like, well, you're not going to hit me, or if you are, it's going to be for like 2 range. So who cares?
I think that's fair.
Next one is Fungal Dwarves versus the Phoenix Elves. And Phoenix Elves had a 57% win rate there. Aaron and I followed that. We each had splits. I had one with Chibata, and Aaron had one with Cheras for the Phoenix Elves. But Exile actually managed to go against the data and have a Fungal Dwarves split with Tever Peggle. First of all, I guess let's talk why might Fungal Dwarves struggle with Phoenix Elves. And I think it could just be because Phoenix Elves are good at just confirming kills and denying the ability to build the diamond and get all those guys up. And then even if they do, they can kind of use Guardians to shove things out of the range of Koldak and then kill things so they don't get the boost. That's my take, but I don't know, Aaron, if you think similarly or...
Yeah, I do. I think this is actually very accurate based off the data. I think it probably leans about like 57% Phoenix Elves just because of how efficiently they can burn down the fungal forest and play from range and pull back units. And if they get out Fire Drake can do a lot of damage to fungal dwarves. Or if Cooldack goes down to lower health, they have ways to burn through blockers and get to Cooldack, and that can be very tough. I think I had a decent shot to win this as Fungal Dwarves, and I kind of didn't make the right call in the end. I pushed up hoping that I wouldn't get fully wiped out, and then my beast got fully wiped out, and then I could have held out and tried to get a monstrosity out or gone for even the kill that round, but I decided to play out the long game because I thought I had a little bit better shot at it, and it ended up not working out for me. I didn't get the best dice in the end, and Cheras was wiping things out with the Fire Drake, which was tough. The Fire Drake survived a long time, but I think I should have either gone for that play, I think it was like 65% chance or something, or gone for the monstrosity. I don't know if I would have won if I had pulled out Monstro, but I think it would have been a better option than what I ended up with.
Meanwhile, Exile and Teverpego had a split for Fungal Dwarves. What were we missing, if there was something we were missing?
Our 2 games were very different. So the game that I won was a pretty short one where I went first with Fungal Dwarves. I ran up, slammed a gate in front of his 10 gate, and then we were kind of off to the races with some early carriers and release spores to just have a lot of aggression. He turned it back with dumping a bunch of damage on Cooldack with Fire Drake plus Maldaria. Actually shot through Maldaria with Fire Drake and did a little bit of damage to her, but just got him really low and then used Blinding Flare to basically say, all right, you're not going to kill me, even though I'm at like 4 or 5. But what ended up happening was the board got really clogged with Koldak mostly safe behind a gate. There was just an army of fungus just kind of swarming the side. So I don't think he drew a gate, or if he did, he drew one very late. And ultimately, Maldaria ended up dying to a demand play. She was hiding in front of a gate, and then demand dumped 8 range dice on her after killing the thing in front, or killing my own gate to reveal her and shoot her. On the other hand, the other Fungal Dwarf game was a marathon. It went all the way down to, we had 2 1 HP summoners with nothing, and I think I died to inactivity first with Maldaria, which was absolutely bravo to Teverpegel. Was a really, really good game. There, I guess I would just attribute it to, I think there was a pretty big threat throughout the game of he was holding on to a demand for a long time, and some early bad dice on my side as Phoenix Elves meant that Koldak had a lot more HP than he should have, and there was a few kills that I didn't get. So we ultimately ended up kind of getting bogged down in the mid board and just ended up doing a lot of trading, and dice were like all over the place on both sides of that matchup. So a lot of whiffs, which led to the game being dragged out longer, and then ultimately it just so happened that Fungal Dwarves won the inactivity damage race. I would agree with the data here. It makes sense, I think, for Phoenix Elves to have the advantage, but the Fungal Dwarves' one saving grace, which is a big reason why I think they can fight in this matchup, is their burst tools. Stuff like Stim Shrooms and Demand especially, and just infecting a thing in front of Maldaria to then hit her for 2 melee is just a really scary tactic for her 9 HP. If you can leverage that, I think that's a good way to get ahead, and also just clogging the board, swarming. The one funny thing is that for each matchup, I also talked to a few community members just to get their takes on it, people who are known to play these decks. And I talked to 2 different people. I think I want to say it was Bean and Orange Lazarus, and they both thought that their respective faction was advantaged in the matchup. They both thought that they are like, yeah, it's a good one for this, for Fungal Doors or for Phoenix Elves, but it gives it credit for it being relatively even.
Or just Orange Lazarus doesn't know when he's got a bad matchup.
Because he wins anyway, yeah.
Yeah. That's the truth. Phoenix Elves, I just feel like, have the tools if they can get out of their own way, if they protect Maldaria and stay alive long enough. The other interesting thing, which we didn't talk about, is some of Phoenix Elves' defensive tools are really good against Fungal Dwarves and some are not as good. I pitched both my Retributions because I don't find that to be as strong against Fungal Dwarves because they can use it to like pop a carrier into a beast and do a lot of fun different things that way. But I played, I think, both my Blinding Flares because Blinding Flare can be really tough for Fungal Dwarves because if you can't commit and get those, that's part of why I sputtered out at the end of my game as Fungal Dwarves, is because if you can't commit and get those infects, then that's a tough turn for you and leaves you exposed and you can get wiped after that. Blinding Flare is always a little bit of a crapshoot because if they roll a lot of specials, it kind of wasn't worth it. But if it does what it's supposed to, it can be really effective at preventing infects and giving you a defensive turn to give you another turn to breathe and take out a lot of their units.
I do think it shines here, and it's a good call on Divine Retribution not being what you want, because I think in my game with Phoenix Elves, I played both Spirit of the Phoenix Enhanced Divine Retribution and also had played Finessa at one point. Both of those ended up backfiring on me in different ways. Finessa, because she whiffed and then left a 1 HP unit, a 1 HP carrier, because she hit 1 out of 3, and let him get like a double attack down the same lane on her. And then Divine Retribution, I think, let him turn either like give a boost to a carrier, another carrier dying, or like turn a carrier into a beast. So not what you want in this matchup.
Now on to the last matchup. It was the Storm Goblins versus the Forged. This is the one that people called out at the start as probably being a bit lopsided, and it did have the most lopsided data, with the Storm Goblins going 58% to the Forged 42%. However, I managed to lose both, and Aaron won with the Forge, or had a Forge split with Tever Peggle, and Exile won both games against Fabo. One thing I saw, you guys can concur or not, the one unit that's really good with the Forged here would be the Sentry Cog, I think, because it kind of can shut down where the little guys can go, those little Volt Swappers. I don't know if there's another key to the matchup. I was winning with the Forge, but maybe you guys can elucidate that.
I think Sentry Cogs are a good call out. They can be real good in this matchup. I think some of the high health units can be good as well. The Ember Cogs and Blast Forge a little bit too, but Ember Cogs just because they're harder for the Storm Goblins to take down in one go. And then if you leave the Ember Cog at like even 1 health, it can probably still attack something, but if it's at more than 1 health, then it can definitely get to something and grab some damage. I felt like this was actually a pretty even matchup, more so than the data showed. Both of mine were very, very close. I probably should have won both of mine. I had a monumental blunder as the Storm Goblin late in that game to leave open a build spot for the Inventor and Forged in Flames to get crushed to 1 health and then get attacked for the last damage in a game that I was winning, but it was very close, very end game. Only like a card left for each player, or a couple cards left for each player. But I misplayed that one a little bit, which cost me that one. And then I was able to claw back as the Forged against Tever and win that end game, which was very close as well.
Yeah, this is probably one of my my favorite matchup that was showcased, and it's one that I didn't have a lot of experience in prior to actually playing this season. But I would agree with you that it's a lot more even than people would think. I think, though, the data does show in D1 it was a 2 for Storm Goblins, 4 split for Forged. So it leaned forged, but obviously very, very small data set. And as you like commented, one of those games happened with a blunder at the end to give it to the forged player. And then the rest of the league data was heavily skewed towards storm goblins. But I think that with like an understanding of the matchup, it is a really like dynamic matchup. The onus is a bit on the forged player to kind of do something because, if sand goblins can just sit back, not take risk, shock the inventor down, if he gets too low, then without you having a really good position to compensate for it, then you really can't do anything. Like if you started the game with both summoners, let's say at like 2 health or 4 health or low HP, and Forged are not going to be able to do anything because they'll just die on approach. But Forged do have a lot of tools in this matchup. Like as you said, Jexic, Entry Cog is huge to be able to shut down Volt Swappers, and 3 HP is nice. Survive like a whiff plus a shock and not die to like a Volt Swapper plus a shock. Also, having things like Workshop and Barricades and Modular to move around your non-unit structures lets you create really good insulation. So that way you're not going to get shocked by like Chain Lightning. And I think that the way that I would shortly describe this matchup would be that the Forged win by suffocation. They win by getting on top of Storm Goblin's territory, clogging out their gate spots, or hitting Thrak really hard to where he can't really be effective, and doing so without taking a bunch of damage on the inventor, at least until you're like about to win. And then Storm Goblins win by just hurting the inventor down to where he can't be effective before he really gets on top of them. So the Forged got to do the work, but they have the tools to. It's just finding the openings and like playing for that very specific goal. Because if you just kind of approach the matchup without the context of it, I think it's really easy to make a mistake and just die to a bunch of Chain Lightning.
There's a couple aspects you were talking about, I think, that are very crucial in this game. If you play Forged how you always would play Forged, I think you might struggle. Like when I approached this game, right out the gate, I normally would play a modular on Magcogs, and they'll just get overcharged and get blown away, even Chain Lightning a couple times and get killed. And so I knew that I wasn't going to play any modulars on my Magcogs, and instead I was going to play them on my structures, especially my 10 gate. Right off the bat, my first modular I put on that 10 gate.
Same.
I just used that to be a buffer between me and the Storm Goblins, and that helped quite a bit. And then I played in my second modular late on a Barricade. I mean, you could play it on a normal gate as well, but another 5 health structure that's not going to be able to be shocked, and I used that as another buffer. I thought about, in the end, keeping it to play on Magcog for a sneaky play to try and get the win, but it worked out well enough to just keep switching, mostly with like Ember Cogs, but occasionally with like Sentry Cogs or Mag Cogs or different aspects. And with the 10 health gate especially, you can keep summoning on the front of that. I didn't do a ton of Forged in Flames damage the entire game because I didn't want the inventor in the danger of the Chain Lightning. And so I traded that aspect of me not taking the damage from Chain Lightning versus also not dealing out that damage. But playing on the front of that gate with modular allowed me to continue to progress it into their territory because I would modular it up each time, and therefore they had to deal with it and they had to try and work around it. I mean, it never went down. I think it went down to like 6 health at some point, but it was effective the entire game.
I do remember looking at your game, and I really liked the way that you used gate summoning, because that's the thing that's very underutilized, I think, in Forged play. Because everybody thinks about, like, okay, you want to get your Forged and Flame damage, you're going to be building off of the inventor, but you have gate summoning spots too, and those are things that both you can use in like the way that you described, but also as a threat. Having a gate spot, even if the inventor's far away, that is unblocked, is something that then the Storm Goblin player either has to like go put a Kite Rider in front of, or a Witch, or something, or shy away from it, and exposure for Thrak. Lots of tools on both sides, I think. Discharge is really scary into Embercog especially, which is one thing that you either might shy away from playing them or just accept that they're going to get some efficient kills that way. Also, just knowing the other faction, I think, is really key here, because playing around recharge is a big thing I find for Storm Goblin Econ. If there's a 3 health witch, they haven't like played both recharge, or especially if they haven't played any recharges like mid game, hitting it with 3 range is really asking the dice gods for a favor, because if you hit it down to 1 HP, which is the most likely result, then they can always just hit you with it, shock it, and deny targets. But also, if they have recharge, or if it's at 2 HP and they have overcharge recharge, then you're giving them back one of their best units on top of the value that recharge already gives. Other little note I want to call out here is sentry cogs are amazing. However, you still have to be careful with them, because I think witches are very good into them, because they can essentially just let the sentry cog do the work for them. A witch runs up, doesn't need anything to get shocked, will take that 1 damage, and then can hit it with 3 range, which might kill it outright, also might leave it at that like 1 HP threshold, which means that it can now be shocked by something else, like not a Volt Swapper or the same witch, but another witch, a Kite Rider, a champion, Thrak himself in some cases, then go down and act still as like a conduit there. So you got to be very careful with how you place them. They're actually very good to cover flanks, but not necessarily to lead the way, if the Storm Goblin player can put a witch, like a fresh witch, in front of them. Well, I suppose with all the matchups covered, then I don't believe we know the results yet of the next season's matchups, but we know the theme.
Yeah, it's gonna be humans versus animals.
Which there was some debate over which falls into which. Like, are werewolves humans or are they animals?
I think they should have been able to play for both teams.
And I was shut down on the filth train. I wanted them to count as humans. End quote.
I mean, they are sort of humans, but
I mean, they have 12 human units in their lineup. It's just that they often don't stay human.
yeah.
But I think people were trying to get Eternal Council to count too, and they have like a human summoner, but almost no one else is human in there.
I feel like most of their commons are human, right?
No.
Okay, like the scholar is an orc, right?
Oh, true. Yeah. Mind Knight, not a human? Or are they like an elf?
They might be human.
There might be
I don't
an
think
elf.
high elves were elf. Yeah.
But I think sages are dwarves.
Oh,
Right.
true. They are a bit of a motley collection.
See, Ovi is like some kind of a avian.
Yep. And then down there is a shadow elf.
Yeah.
Yep.
And Katu's probably human, but still, there's not that many.
That's actually a funny thing, that a slight like peek, I guess, into not anything upcoming for playtesting, but just playtesting in general, is that a concern that has been for like future development is that there's not enough humans, because they actually tend to sell better than non-human like factions. So it's a thing that they design around, of trying to make sure that they at least have some humans in the front as like a display, right? At least like one human faction or human-esque thing.
Yeah, I remember them saying that about human-ish factions.
Squirrels are human-ish.
But it's like the other thing that Colby noticed a lot of times is that the old faction, like one that was a reprint from first edition, often sold slightly better than the new one. I'd like to know the data on Guild Wars versus Drake's Son Rebellion, though. I wonder if Drake's Son outsold Guild Wars just because, I mean, it's dragons.
Yeah, that would be curious to see. Two things head to head there.
Dragons, and also the human factor of like, oh, they're humans riding dragons. I mean, that's got to be cool. I don't know. I feel like that one would have sold well, but who knows? I think how he knows like which one sells out first when they end up selling out.
It's really funny to me to think of like buying of like a release pair and then only like buying one of them. Although I guess it would make sense if you're like a more casual player, right? Or if you have like the master set and you're at a board game store or something and you see some Summoner Wars things and you're like, ooh, I like dragons.
Yeah, I mean even that, yeah, like what percentage of players don't buy both? I don't know. You know, like
yeah. Gosh, could you imagine like having just the master set and then like the 7th faction you add is Drake's Son Rebellion? That's a wild jump in like design philosophy and just like overall faction design.
Yeah. It's not the most out there though.
yeah, I feel like the Storm Goblins are pretty weird.
Yeah, Storm Goblins might be the most out there. Special Conclave's probably up there.
Chosen Grove. I think like the last waves has been pretty out there. But
Yeah.
I think that one thing we noticed in the past, it seemed like the beginning of a wave is usually less complex than the end of a wave. Like right after the master set, the first thing was the starter set with Tundra Orcs and Phoenix Elves, fairly simple. And then Cloaks and Sky Ravens were a step up. But I think like Fungal Dwarves and Eternal Council, especially if you're playing them physically in person, are two of the most complicated decks that have been released even this far. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Because I sometimes think, like, what if the game just stopped there with those 12 factions? Like, yeah, that was like a reasonable level of complexity to bring to the game. We look at Wave 6, which we're on now, right? Wave 6 was with like the Moonstep Wolves and the Thornhowl Dre, and I watched the video with Tom Vassell, and there's like, I would not hand either of these factions off to a brand new player.
Yeah, it definitely is a step up in terms of like opening complexity. I'm curious on your guys' take though. You guys think that wolves are a very complex faction? Like, where would you put them in the scale?
I'd put them kind of middle, but I wouldn't place them like your first couple games. You know, I think that's it's a bit too, because there's too many like, oh, I want to do this and then I can't because I'm not a wolf or my
Yeah.
guys
Oh,
aren't wolves.
true.
Even that I find kind of awkward. And like the Dre, I think just trying to form any kind of cohesive thought with them at first is difficult.
I mean, it's for like, really experienced players, it's already takes a bit to wrap your head around. So yeah, I think that they might be one of the most like mechanically complex, if that makes sense, right? Fungal dwarves and like high elves are complex because of, managing the board state for fungal dwarves, and high elves just giving you so many options. But I think that the squirrels might be the winner in terms of just overall like pure mechanical complexity.
But also, like, I think they do have a high skill ceiling too, which will be interesting to see as people explore because they have so many anytime abilities, you know, with the Dre. Driver's seat on both of their champions can be done basically anytime. The turret can be anytime, and as well as the lumber wheel. Deploy troops, like all these things can be really flexibly used, and there's two very specific timing windows for when you can actually get in the structures. I've played them like 60 times and I'm at like a slightly less than 50% win rate, so I kind of think I understand how they work, but not well. And I also think they have a bad matchup into the Moonstep Wolves, or at least at the level that most people are playing the two factions. I think they might struggle with early aggression if you don't know what you're doing and they don't have time to set up. So another tough matchup might be the Drake's on Rebellion. I recommend they actually play, like, for next season. We'll see if they do, but I actually think the Wayfarers is an interesting matchup for them. I played it from both sides, or mostly the Wayfarers side, and I think, oh, I gotta get that little 9 health summoner, and then you try, and then much like Polar Dwarves or some other factions that can just throw stuff in your way, they're tough to pin down, and they can body block very well by like doing deploy troops after they do stuff. The Wayfarer's lack of auto damage, it's tough to clear those little blockers.
Yeah, that's a really good shout. Yeah, it doesn't matter that they have 1 health. You're still gonna need to spend one of your 3 attacks on them.
Yeah. So like that matchup has been pretty interesting in my experience, and I think it'd be a cool one for the league. But we'll see if it gets picked.
Yeah, I think I voted for that one too. I didn't even think about like that 3 attack limitation factor for Wayfarers. I think that if Thornhold Dre get early structures, it's probably better for them or more of a game. I see if they stumble, like the classic Wayfarers goes first, gets on top of you really quickly, and then if they don't have structures, I could see like an early loss happening. But if they find the tools they need, yeah, I still think it'd be a very fun like game of cat and mouse, or in this case, cat and squirrel.
I think it'll be interesting to see how it plays out and what gets chosen for the next round of league. With Exile stepping away and myself not in Div 1, I'm curious to see who
takes the crown.
who takes the crown.
Probably Tever Peggle.
Yeah, I'm kind of rooting for Tever. It's been a couple seasons of being pretty close for Tever. Tever went down,
I think
actually.
he might have lost. Oh, he lost because he lost the
But Tever will probably
tiebreaker versus
stay,
Perez.
I think, because Exile's leaving.
I think that if I remember correctly, Massimo is running a special tiebreaker game to see who stays in D1. I forget which of the two people, but I think that there is a game to see.
Between who?
Pull up the message. I think it was Tever and somebody else.
Tever and Guy, maybe?
In any case, I feel bad that I keep hearing Tever Peggle's name in this thing being close to winning the league and not quite getting there. So
It was Snalg and Guy.
Really?
Is
I feel like Tever
are the two that
deserve to be in that, but because to be tied,
I guess is
in second place
in Div 1.
Yeah, for Div 1, so difficult. and then to not get a chance when somebody's stepping away. At least have a chance. I probably would have just given it to Tever outright. At least have a chance. I mean, Snaug and Guy both had great seasons as well, 8 and 2, both of them in Div 2. And yeah, I don't know. I feel like Tever should have been in that conversation, but I don't run the league.
Well, if the pattern holds, then he'll likely be promoted back to D1 and have a shot at it.
Yep. Tever and I will meet again in D1. We've had some memorable games.
I find it really cool that he's somebody who basically just plays League. Like, he doesn't really play ladder at all, but he does really well.
Yeah.
There's a few others of those, like Chibata and some people that have been around a long time, whose names I don't even know because I don't play in Div 1 and 2 as much.
I mean, I'm getting to that point. I don't play ladder much anymore.
And Excile dropped from like number 1 to number 5, so
yeah, washed.
Wow! I'll be back up there. We'll see. We'll see if we hit number 1 this season or if we end up somewhere else. But somebody else can enjoy the spotlight for a bit.
The limelight you're talking about. The limelight.
Oh, there you go. That's the real reason why I'm dropping out of League. Is that gotta let somebody else win it, right? I already got my win.
Yep. One and done. Didn't take 20 seasons like it took me,
I think I got placed in D4 because there was an opening. If I remember correctly, like people enter in like D5 or something. Or I got placed one above where I was supposed to, wherever that was. And then we just went to the next one, and then we won it. And now we're gone.
Well, we appreciate you coming on, Excile, to talk about the league matchups with us and chat about some of
Yeah, always a pleasure. We'll see when the next time I'll be on.
Could have been next season, if you ran it back, but I guess not. Yeah, we'll see who wins next season, who we'll have on for these next league matchups, and then I'm sure we'll have you back on for a faction at some point or a discussion of some sort.
For sure.
Well, we appreciate everybody listening. This has been another episode of Discard for Magic, and we'll see you guys in a couple weeks.